My name's Wade Watts. My dad picked that name because it sounded like a superhero's alter ego, like Peter Parker or Bruce Banner. But he died when I was a kid, my mom too. And I ended up here, sitting here in my tiny corner of nowhere. There's nowhere left to go. Nowhere. Except the Oasis.
Hi, welcome to Real Talk, a movie review segment from Lantern TV. I'm Wyatt Crosher. Joining me is the person who called me stupid on my own show last time, Zach Varda. Zach, thanks for coming back.
You're welcome. I'll try not to hurt your ego this time.
Yeah, I really need it. So today we're reviewing Ready Player One. It's directed by Steven Spielberg. It's off of a very popular book by Ernest Cline, which you have read, and I have not. That may come into play. It stars Ty Sheridan, Olivia Cooke, Ben Mendelsohn, and Mark Rylance. And Zach, can you tell us a little bit what it's about?
So it's about a virtual reality world called the Oasis, created by a man named Halliday. I can't remember his first name off the top. And he creates this world, and this world's been around for like 20 years when we jump in at 2045 in Columbus, Ohio. And
They say it a lot.
Yes, it is mentioned a lot. And he's passed away, and he creates this Easter egg hunt for any video game fans out there. It's like an Easter egg in a video game where you got to get 3 keys so you can get to this Easter egg. And if you do, you get his shares in his company, which are worth $500 billion or $500 million, and you get control over the Oasis. So we jump in, and our main character is a egg hunter, shortened to a Gunter, who is looking for these keys with his friends. And I think that's a pretty good synopsis.
There's a lot going on, and since you've read the book, you know more about it than I do, but I did know a lot coming into this, a very, very popular book that a lot of people were excited about, and that alone and Spielberg being a part of it had me excited. I don't know, I've heard it's a very difficult one to adapt, so were you kind of skeptical coming in?
I was skeptical coming in, but like not in a bad way that, wow, they're gonna flop. I mean, it's Spielberg. He doesn't make bad movies, but there are parts in it where when you're reading the book, you love, but you're like, wow, how are they going to visually do this? And some of those they just straight cut out. There are big changes for people that have seen the book, have read the book and go see the movie. There are big changes, but they're changes that as a huge Book of the fan I can live with because it was so they could be, visually appealing.
As a huge Book of the fan. All right, so
Yeah.
for me, without having any knowledge of the book, I thought, first of all, the visuals were outstanding. Like, I didn't know how they'd be able to pull off all these references and all these different characters, but I thought the CGI and, like, the effects were, like, incredible, like, some of the best I've seen in a long time. And, like, you really get a lot of the scope of the world from it, and I thought, just right off the bat, like, I understood what the Oasis was because of just how good these effects were.
Yeah, it's such a big concept, the Oasis, and, they don't take a lot of time to world build for you. Because the visuals do it so well, you very quickly understand. I know, like the very first shot when they go into the Oasis sums it up pretty perfectly.
Right.
That is multiple chapters in the book, for example. And Spielberg's use of visuals to introduce you to the world really gives you the scope very succinctly.
Yeah, it's not a movie that really takes a lot of time setting you up. It has like a little narration at the beginning to really just get you to understand what this world is. So for me, I thought it was enough, like even without having a ton of knowledge about the book. Like I understood enough of what was happening and what this world was, and because the movie's already pretty long to start with, I didn't think it needed much exposition coming in.
No, it didn't need the exposition. What they did was perfect. You understood who the good guys were, who the bad guys were, what this world was like, what it meant to the current day, like dystopian future they lived in. Like that was all done in 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and that was perfect because, like you said, already a pretty long runtime.
There were certain characters I really enjoyed. The one that stood out the most to me was Mark Rylance as Halliday. I don't know what about him I just loved so much. Like just the delivery of everything he said, I thought was just perfect, and I totally understood what his character was supposed to be. And then also I really liked the main character, Ty Sheridan. I thought he did a good job. And T.J. Miller, do you remember who he plays? I-Rock. I don't know what his characters in the book at all, but I just thought he was in there just enough and funny enough to really add that comic relief that was needed.
He was perfect, and that's a great example of where they took something in the book and they expanded it. I-Rock is important in the book, but not like that. And they really expanded it and made him, every time he's in it, he's amazing.
Yeah.
And I was so happy with what they did with that character because it was an example where there were some things they had to take out, so there were other things that they had to make bigger, and they hit it perfectly.
How did you feel they did the references? Because people, like, when you see the trailer, it's like, how are they going to do all of these things? There's all these little Easter eggs and all these little things from other books and video games and movies. It seemed like a ton. And I thought, for the most part, they went over pretty seamlessly.
Yeah, they went over pretty seamlessly, I think. And I didn't feel overwhelmed or bogged down by them. I would guess there are probably ones I didn't pick up on. I would guess if I went back there are more. But yeah, there were things like, maybe there's a passing character to the side and they're from your favorite video game, and that's pretty cool. But it wasn't ever like, hey, we need to like shove this down your throat.
Yeah, shout out Tracer. There are some really good, like, strong references that made for some of my favorite scenes in the movie. There's one for the Iron Giant that I loved, and there's one from this movie that I thought was super well done. The Shining, if you weren't sure.
Maybe people don't know.
Maybe some people don't know. It's incredible. It's probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie. And you said that was not.
That's not in the
not
book.
in the book at all.
At all. So that was another example of, because that Shining scene was fantastic, and that's not really in the book, like, even at all.
There are just some moments in the movie you're just like, I couldn't help but just like get super excited and super like amped up, like, oh my gosh, this is something I've loved forever, and they're just doing it so well. And then I think there are definitely gripes I can have with this movie though, at the same time.
It's not perfect. Coming, like I said, from my point of view, I didn't really like the way they dragged out and changed the ending. It wasn't horrible, but it was definitely something that stuck with me. The ending kind of got dragged out a little bit. They took some of my favorite scenes from the book out. There's one where he's got to play a game, and it's an arcade game, and he's got to do X, Y, and Z on it. And I can see why it got taken out, because you don't want to have a 5 to 10 minute scene of someone just standing at an arcade box. But so there are things where you're not upset that they took them out, but you're like, man, that was really one of my favorite scenes. I would have liked to have seen it in there. But overall, I thought it was almost like it was inspired by the book more than adapted from the book.
Okay. I liked a lot of what they did at the end. I could see it going a little long, and if they changed a couple things, I could see why there's issues. The biggest issue that I had was with the romance that they try to build in the movie. I liked the performances of both the people, Olivia Cooke and Ty Sheridan. I think they do a good job, but I couldn't buy like the chemistry that they were having like so quickly, and
they rushed it.
Yeah.
They just didn't have the time, I don't think, to build it the way it was built. So for me, it's, I'll just refer to it as Artemis, because I think that's the easiest way.
Yeah.
It's Artemis and Parzival. Their relationship, I loved it in the book, and I can see why they rushed it on screen. So for me, it didn't bother me, though, because I knew all the other stuff that was in there. They had the one pivotal scene about revealing names, which was a very important scene in their relationship. But then, like, 10 minutes later, they're, like, on the verge of being a couple, so...
It just feels like we missed something. It's just like...
You did, but
right.
I can see why could feel rushed and a little cliche, but I think in such a fun movie, maybe we didn't need to delve deeper into it.
And again, it's a very fun movie, which makes some of these flaws I have with getting stakes added less, because there's moments when you're in the real world specifically that I think they wanted me to feel some emotion, and I just didn't.
You kind of just want
to
get back to the Oasis.
There's something that feels like a pivotal scene in the middle that I won't say, because it just happened, and then they moved on, and then it was like, I didn't care. Like, I just didn't care about it.
I think you always want to be an Oasis, which is funny because the message of the movie is that people are getting too much into Oasis, and they need to get back to the real world. But when I'm watching the movie, I'm like, I just want the scenes that are in the virtual reality.
Definitely. Yeah, because they try to like add stuff with his family, and they try to get you to care about his aunt's relationship, and
you only see her for like 2 scenes.
You only see her for like 2 scenes, and then all the stuff that when you see in the real world, there's like just people walking around with this thing. Like, I just don't understand how that works. Like, it just doesn't seem like it would make sense in my head. I don't know. Again, it feels like I'm like reaching for little things. But I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, I can see what you mean. You would think there would be like cafes or something, like internet cafes.
Just walk into traffic.
Which is a thing in the book. There's like internet cafes where people go to use these things. So I don't know. Overall, I had a lot of fun watching it. If you like video games, you're gonna have a lot of fun watching it. If you read the book, I think you're gonna enjoy it. Don't get hung up. It's gonna sound like I'm hung up on it, but like that's just for the point of a review. Don't get hung up on I need every part of the book to be in the movie. Like just be like, this movie's basically inspired by the book, and you're gonna have a lot of fun and get that nostalgia trip that the book gave you. And I think you're really gonna enjoy it.
Yeah, and for someone who hasn't read the book, you don't need to by any means to see this movie. You're gonna have a lot of fun, like you said. There's so many little things you'll pick up on if you enjoy any of these references. It's a really good time. I like a lot of the characters. I just thought there could have been more stakes. I thought the romance could have been a little better. And there's some moments that made me roll my eyes. You're like, come on. Like There's a couple of those moments where you're like, all right, this is a little cheesy, it's a little coincidental. But overall, it is a very fun movie. If I were to rate it, I would say I would put it at full price. Maybe the Gateway discount. I definitely think you should see it in theaters because it's a visual spectacle.
Yeah, you have to
for
see it in
sure.
theaters.
Definitely see it in theaters. It's definitely worth the big screen because there's so many great effects, great moments of action that I look back on and think, yeah, this is definitely worth some sort of ticket at the theater.
If I was gonna give it the rating for us, I would say you don't need the Gateway discount, but go to the Gateway and not to the AMC. There is a difference in price there. Go see it at the Gateway. You don't need to see it in like IMAX by any means, but you do need to see it in a theater. Just go check it out. It's a lot of fun. I guess the only cautionary thing would be like if you don't like pop culture, video games, movies, TV shows, like if you're not a pop culture person, it's probably not.
Yeah,
for
a lot
you.
of stuff will just go over your head.
And yeah, and without those references, I feel like it would definitely dip.
Yeah. That's a wrap on Real Talk this week. Zach, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Join us next week. Thanks for watching.
Nailed it.